Amen. Thank you.
Welcome to the Save Our Children podcast. We're your hosts, Becky and Bridget. Today, we are so blessed to speak to Kayleigh Kozak. Kayleigh is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, a college graduate, political activist, public speaker, and founder of Because You Still Matter. But more importantly, she's a wife and a mother to 5 beautiful children. In February of 2020, Kayleigh had to face her abuser once again in court years after her case was closed. Kayleigh was informed that when her perpetrator's probation ended, so did her protection. So together with local Arizona legislators, Kayleigh worked to draft Kayleigh's Law, a bill that offers lifetime protection to victims and survivors of sexual and domestic abuse, regardless of their abuser's probation status. Yes, you heard that correctly. That does not actually exist in most states right now. As of this recording, Arizona and Wisconsin are the only 2 states that have signed this bill, but we are hoping that many more states, legislators, and leaders see the importance of protecting the victims throughout their lifetime. She is truly becoming her own hero. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kayleigh. For those who do not yet know you, can you please give us some of your background?
Oh, she just covered a lot.
Yay.
Thanks for having me on, guys. So I'm just an average Joe. I'm a mom of 5. I did graduate college and have just kind of, always prioritized my kids. But unfortunately, I do fall into the category of being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I was forced into a club that I never wanted any part of. And I don't know, every victim deals with their trauma differently. And when my case closed, I just tucked that file really, really deep in the drawer and I never pulled it back out. And fortunately, I was able to go on and live a really normal life, if you will, a really healthy life. And that was until 2020 when my world turned upside down, literally, all because of a phone call. And it's when they say one phone call can change everything, it's true. So that is when things got real for me in this case.
How old were you when you were abused?
So I was 12 and 13. I was in 6th and 7th grade, middle school, very, very vulnerable age.
Yeah, especially right now, we see the whole pedophilia agenda being pushed, and there's teen suicide is through the roof, and so much mental health, and the world is hurting, and so many times the survivors and victims, you guys are silenced, and it takes so much fight. And I personally want to say that I know when we saw you a couple of weeks ago at a local event for the moms, I was so honored and blessed to have finally connected with you. And I just want to say I'm so proud of you, because what most people don't realize is the fight that you have to literally push yourself to be heard. And so many survivors and so many victims don't even get to that point of being heard because they're gaslit and the trauma, and then just reliving those moments and telling the story over and over and hoping that one person truly stops and listens. So even you took it to a whole nother level, and I'm forever grateful to have you in our state fighting. And you're so boots on the ground, and you literally are not only fighting for yourself, but for other survivors and victims as well, and hoping to get your message spread even further. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for helping spread the word. I do feel like, this is one of those laws where until victims know they have this protection, they don't know. And so getting the word out is so critical right now. And this was never about me. Ever. I should have never had to do anything that I've had to do in the last 2 years. But that is why I'm fighting so hard, because no other victim should have to do anything that I've had to do. And I'm doing my best to ensure that that never happens again.
Yeah, and I just want to put this in perspective for those who are listening and just now hearing Kayleigh's story for the first time. I want to put it in perspective of 13 years later, after your case was closed, you had to go back and you had to face your abuser again. So what that means is not only the trauma, but like sitting in that courtroom and knowing how the system is and not knowing if people are going to truly listen to what you're saying. And then you're often gaslit, and there's so much more that comes with that, let alone the emotions of just standing there. And you are alone. You are very much alone. And you personally, and so many others, and I know hands-on working with survivors, so many feel so alone. And so it's important to share your message and try to get this law passed across globally. So with that being said, is most people, again, don't realize and stop to understand that victims endure so much, and people often forget that there's so much more to the trauma, and this isn't a trend, and it's not a social media or Democratic, whether it's Democrat, Republican, it's happening everywhere. And so what I want to say is you could have walked away and moved on, lived on with your life after exiting and your case being closed. And so many people, even in human trafficking, people forget that it doesn't just stop. And once the case is closed, there's still life and tactics that are used against victims and survivors, even after, if justice is ever served. So what made you decide to take it one step further? I often talk about the power of one, and you truly embodied the power of one still till this day, fighting for yourself and so many others. But what gave you that final push to say, no, this ends now? This ends with me, no more, and really put the spotlight on it for others as well.
So what I want to say too, because I don't want to forget, because I'll forget. Think about this when you think about survivors knowing that they're not heard and that they're alone. Before I even went to court that day, the only person I had helping me was his probation officer. I finally was able to get a hold of the prosecutor, and even she told me that good luck. He's been good. He's been an ideal probationee. Like, we're going to let him off. Like, she didn't say that. I'm sorry. She said, she said that she had to leave it at the discretion of the court. She could not. So think about that as a survivor already going in, feeling defeated.
Mhm.
And someone in my family had told me the night before, because I said, I have to go and try. If I don't go and he gets off, I will never forgive myself for not trying. But if I go and at least I try, then at least I can say I tried. And one individual in my family they said, do you know how stupid you sound? You're one person. They already have their mind made up. And I'm one motherfucking person.
Heck yeah. Badass.
So when this whole thing resurfaced for me, and they said that his probation was going to be lifted, could be lifted. Not that I didn't care about a lot of different things, but my biggest concern was my safety. What do I have that's going to protect me? Because right now, all I have is his probation. And I asked his probation officer, I said, can I file a restraining order? Which, when you know how those work, it seems kind of silly that I even asked, but that was the first thing I asked. And she said, well, surely you can file for that or an injunction. Well, those are only good for 6 months or a year. And so she told me I could, though. Okay. So then I find out, actually you can't, because you're not in current danger.
Right. And that's what we've had. Sorry to interrupt. That's what Bridget and I had. We were in a situation where people were texting, like, we're going to be at your rally. We're going to do that. And we called the cops.
Yeah.
They're like, they didn't do anything. There's nothing we can do.
Yep. And I said, so let me get this straight. The man who sexually abused me as a child is going to have his probation lifted, and then he can just send me messages on Facebook or show up at my front door, and you guys aren't going to do anything? No, because No. Okay, well, that's bullshit. That's literally what I said. So anyways, I had to go to court and try, and I did. And I spoke from my heart. I tried to write. I just couldn't. I just prayed that God would give me the words and I could say what needed to be said. And there was not one dry eye in that courtroom. It was very emotional. I have not read my transcript yet. I don't want to. I'm very at peace with how it went. But I do know that I said something along the lines of, what matters the most to me is that I deserve protection. And if this is lifted, there will be no protection. And you could just hear, it was kind of like, when you watch the movies and there's like these crazy things, you could hear the keyboard start going. And there was a man just sobbing in the back corner. And after I testified, they took me back into a room and I was bombarded because, by attorneys, psychiatrists that were there, probation people, the judge, because they were like, you're right, there is no such thing as post-probation protection. And I said, this is wrong. Like I should not be having to come back to court after 15 years of seeing him, 13 years of my case being closed, because I don't have protection, because he asked for 2 terms of lifetime probation. He asked for it in lieu of prison time of 20 plus years of prison. And now you guys have decided that lifetime isn't lifetime. It's 7 to 14 years and he can get off, and you're leaving me out in the dust. This is wrong. Yes. And one person in particular was like, that's it. Here, she like wrote her number and her name on the bottom of a piece of paper, and she tore it off, and she's like, I'm going to help you. This is wrong. You're going to change things. You're going to pass a law. We're going to call it Kayleigh's law. And this was in January of 2020. And mind you, I just testified. Like I just went through the trauma of testifying against my abuser. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, I'm going to change. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do any of this, but I'm going to. So that was a lot. It took a lot for me. It was a really dark 3 weeks, because from the time I got the phone call, I got the phone call January 28th, and I was testifying in court February 22nd. So I had less than, about 3 weeks to process that I had to go back and reface my abuser. And so, not funny, but funny, I realized that all this, and I'm like, a law, like, how do you change a law? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And then I'm not ashamed to say this. I didn't know who my elected officials were. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know anything. I just knew I was going to change this. And so my husband helped me. And on February 26th, I emailed my local legislator. And then the next week, like, Trump declared like national emergency and COVID happened and nothing else in the world mattered. And so what people don't know and they can't know is that right then and there was like the devil, like, boom, you're done. Nothing's going to happen. Here's a crisis and good luck. And so I didn't know the legislative process or session, so I didn't know anything. And so in hindsight, it was horrible timing. February, trying to launch a bill in Arizona was not good. But so life went on, right? Like nobody knew what was going on. And I just remember like days would come and like it was in waves that what happens, like he's going to motion again. And the judge told him he could motion again. So I knew it was coming. It was going to come. But I couldn't let it go. I literally could feel the weight of it, that, wait a second, this is going to happen. And then I knew every third Friday of the month, sex offenders go down to the court in Arizona and they motion to have their probation lifted. And we watched the first 3 guys get off probation. And so October was really dark for me. I was at home with my 5 kids. My husband was working night shift and working 6 days a week, 6 nights a week. And everything was closed. I mean, think about October 2020. Like I couldn't even take my kids, to
anywhere.
Yeah. And
we live in a good state. We live in the most open state.
Yeah. There's Florida and then
us.
We're in. But so I was I was making my son's bed and I was listening to Andy Frisella's podcast for 75 Hard. And I just felt like he was speaking to me. And I was like, that's it. I'm changing. Today's the day. Like, I can't keep doing this. I have to change my life. I have to change what happened. Like everything is changing today. And so I started 75 Hard that day. And that's a whole, thing. But then I also called my local legislator's office until they answered their phone and agreed to schedule me. I called and I called and I called and I called whoever I had to call, because how many months had gone by, 7, 8 months, but I couldn't let it go. It had to change.
Yeah.
And so Senator Kerr she's like, there's no way this isn't a law. Okay, well, that's me.
You read it before you became senator. It's not a law.
It's not. And, but it seems so impossible that it's not a law. Like, it seems, how is this not a law? How is this real? And so I met with her and her staff on, December 6th, I think, of 2020. And she called me in January of 2021 and she's like, well, we drafted it and we're dropping it in. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. Because I didn't know what it meant. And I just said, I want to be a part of everything. Like, I don't want to miss anything. And I literally, you guys, it cracks me up because I had no clue how anything worked. But
you taught yourself and parents, you didn't give up.
No, and I wasn't. And I mean, so I had surgery January 21st, I think, of 2021. And it was dropped in. And then I had to have an emergency surgery February 24th because of a complication. And I was literally sitting back, getting prepped for surgery. Like, they were doing my IV. I was talking to the anesthesiologist and she's blowing up my phone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go down to the Capitol tomorrow. And my doctor's like, no. And I was like, but I have to. And I was explaining everything to him. And he's like, oh shit, you gotta go. And
so give me good pain meds, doc, because I'm going to the Capitol.
I mean, he said, like, you literally go and you leave. And it is, again, funny to me because it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it wasn't like I had to testify, but my face was going to be there. It was the third read in the Senate before it was transferred over to the House. And so I went like 16 hours after surgery, drains, all the things, climbed up the stairs and stood in the gallery while they read my bill because I wasn't going to miss it, because that's how important it was to me. And so I just was a part of everything and, testifying, and that's a lot of pressure too, to go. And then you're again, here you are as the victim pleading your case now, not in front of a judge or a jury, but in front of legislators. And half of them don't give a shit because they're on the other side of perpetrator, so it's not even like they're looking for justice.
Or they are.
Actually, there was a House representative who was arrested, Representative Navarrete, and he voted in favor of my law. So even a sex offender voted in favor of this. But I mean, the point is, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was doing it. It was going to happen. And so the bill passed with complete bipartisan support, which never happens.
But it's how it should be, because it shouldn't be bipartisan at all.
Exactly. It's like cancer. And I hate to say that, but it has no boundaries. It knows no race. It knows no sex. Like, it happens every 68 seconds. Like, so, but it passed in 4 months. And so it was signed. Governor Ducey, I remember I was running on the treadmill at Lifetime and Senator Kerr called me and I was like, oh my gosh. Cause she's like, you just signed your bill. And so then in June, the Arizona State Senate proclaimed it as Kayleigh's law. And I was so honored because they did not have to do that. It was, again, this is not about me, but the way the bill was presented was to give victims natural life protection from their abuser. And I say that for a reason, or bring that up for a reason. So anyways, we got to go and sign with the governor in August of 2021. It was cool that my kids got to go and see that. But in July of 2021, Wisconsin drafted the bill. So that was kind of in the mix of everything. And then the law was going into effect September 29th of 2021. And I met with the implementation team and I could not believe what I was hearing, because the way the law was written, it was put under a traditional injunction, meaning what? It was only valid for a year. So a victim would have to petition the court every year for the rest of their life. And I was so angry because that defeated the entire purpose of the law. Also, it couldn't be served at the time of sentencing, which why create the extra work? Like, moving from here forward, they should be able to serve a defendant when the case is happening. And I'm very confident in saying that 99% of victims will want this lifetime injunction. If for some reason you have a victim who wants to recant that, okay, well, let's put a clause in there that allows them to petition the court. Why are you making it more work? Let's have it be automatic and then leave.
Because 99% of the time will be the way we need it. 1% will go backward.
Exactly. But why are we creating more work? I was I can remember that feeling like it was yesterday. I was so upset. So I said, how do we fix this? And I said, because I'm not okay with any of this. This is not what this was supposed to be. And they're like, well, we have to like create a whole new chapter and we have to do this and do that. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. So I and my husband literally wrote the language for a new bill that was dropped in 2020 in Arizona. And mind you, in 2021, this wasn't that big of a deal, right? Like it was bipartisan, nobody fought against it. Oh my God, what an opposite story in 2022. So we amended the law, which wasn't a big deal. It's a new law. And we created a new chapter that made the law valid for a defendant's natural life. Now, the reason that word is so critical is because it takes away any loopholes. And that's what people don't understand is there's so many loopholes in the law right now, especially for perpetrators. So by putting that word natural in there, did we rub some people the wrong way, because natural life it's a pretty hefty sentence, but so is living with being abused for your life. Yeah. So we put it in this last session. It was SB 1653, and that's exactly what it said was this injunction will be valid for a defendant's natural lifetime. And at the Capitol, I had attorneys showing up, defense attorneys fighting me. I had sex offender moms showing up fighting me, and I was there all by myself. And I mean, it got to the point where one of the representatives was like, we're not doing this ugly stuff. Like, you are not going to attack me the way that they were. But we had to fix that loophole. We could not leave that open. And so I didn't understand what was going to surface when all this happened. But again, I just knew I was going to do it, and it had to be done right, which is what we've done. So it was fixed in Arizona, and the injunction is valid for the defendant's natural life. Oh, I even had the NRA show up and fight against this.
Wow.
So someone go ahead.
Sorry. So I have a question that maybe people don't understand, or maybe I misunderstand or something. So let's say that the abuser their probation is over. They've done their time, even though they don't do their time, and their probation is over. This law means they can't contact you, right? For the rest of their life, ever and ever and ever.
Yes.
Does it add anything more to what they have to do once their probation is over? Does it do anything different to what they get off or whatever their stuff? Is it more I don't want to say more harmful, because don't get me wrong, I think there's so many things that should happen, but for the moms of abusers to come in and be like, how dare you? How is that even a problem? Like, let's just say your son, it's not always men, but your son abused this girl. Why would that be a problem for him never to talk to that girl again?
It's crazy because go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off, but with tying that into what Becky is saying, I think it's important for you to tie in with your law and you amending it and what's about to go into effect on September 24th. If you can share, with going off the question Becky just said, as a victim and survivor, what that means when the probation period ends, how you have to be notified, and what the victim is then notified and then has a right to go back and testify. If you can break that down for those who are listening who may not be aware, and why your law has now changed that, and what really upset people to then get you attacked like in the way you did.
Okay. So sometimes I forget because I talk about it so much, but I think what's important to understand about the law is prior to this law, it was all or nothing. So either they're on probation and you're protected, or they're off and you're not.
Right.
So the law makes it so that regardless of the terms of their probation, your abuser may not contact you ever. Natural life, on or off probation, it doesn't matter.
Seems super valid. Like,
You would think it was already a thing, but it wasn't.
yeah,
So that's, in a nutshell, that's what the law does. It
Okay.
gives you protection, natural life protection from your abuser, regardless of the terms of their probation. Because now we all know lifetime does not mean lifetime. You can go ask a fifth grader, what does lifetime mean? And they're going to say, well, your entire life. Well, for sex offenders, it's 7 to 14 years, but who's paying attention? So what happens is now with this law, so an active case, if there's an active case going on right now that hasn't closed, what victims and their families need to know is that you need to make sure that when you're going through your case, and whether you go to trial or you accept a plea deal, that this injunction is served at the time of sentencing, period. Now that you can go back and still serve it if you want, but I would recommend at the time of sentencing, file for it. And you literally petition the court with a form called Kayleigh's Law that they will serve. Under Kayleigh's Law, they will serve the defendant, and you may not contact your victim ever. So they can lift all the other terms of the perpetrator's probation, but they still may not contact their victim ever. If you have a retroactive case, which is like what mine is, you have to petition the court still. So what's going to happen is the form is almost finalized. Thank God. So the form is almost finalized, and you will fill out the form. You'll petition the court. All these are going to one judge. The judge will sign it, and then you have to take it to the police station or a process server and have them serve the defendant. So it'll be served the same way as an injunction or a restraining order, but it will just be natural life. So, oh shoot. Also a reference I want to, for Arizona specifically, this is only for Arizona. There is a attorney who is helping victims, legal services for crime victims of Arizona. Her website is LSCVA, and she is all about this, about helping. She is free of charge, helping victims petition the court to have this protection. And she is a victims' rights attorney. I would encourage you to check out her website. There's a lot on there about it. And once the law goes into effect on September 24th, there will be more information on all our county websites and quick links to the form. So to fill out. But because it is a new law, we don't have all the ins and outs. You know, it's going to be a little bit of a process. And my goal is to go through the process and find all the kinks so that it is painless and smooth for victims, as it should be. But because it's so new, I know we're going to run into a few roadblocks, and that's okay, because we're going to fix it, and it's going to be effortless and painless for victims.
I still can't believe people were out arguing about it. Like, people argue about everything, so I get it. I guess I could see if it was a family member, like how that would throw a wrench in things. But again, the victim deserves the right to have that power to not be contacted.
And there is a clause in there that they can have it. They don't have to pursue this.
Yes.
So because there are those cases. But again, I'm very confident in saying, and I just think about this. Nowadays, there are so many ways to contact people, endless. Okay. And so one of the main things I thought about was, what if this goes away and my abuser, who is very boisterous, by the way, has published articles about himself, and says he's found Jesus, and I hope he has. I mean that. I genuinely mean that. However, that doesn't mean you contact me. But what if he gets his probation lifted and he decides one day, I want to go and I want to send her a message on Instagram and apologize. You don't get to do that. You don't get to reinsert yourself in my life. That is re-traumatizing me, re-victimizing me. You don't get to do that. You've already done enough to me. You don't get to do that. And you know what? for all the people on the other side of this, maybe they just want to say they're sorry. There is literally a protocol to protect, again, to protect the abuser, the defendant, not the victim, but there is a protocol in place if a defendant does want to write like an apology letter. And it's to protect them, not me, not the victim, but they can. There's a way to do it, is what I'm saying. So even with this law, they could still do that, but this law keeps them from ever contacting their victim, and they should never be allowed to do that, ever.
Well, and like you said, having all of the ways to contact, they can now contact you through your kids.
Mhm.
Like if there was ever, oh, I know they go to this school, I'm going to send a letter to the school, or they are on this social media, or they're in this play, or that whatever.
Yeah. Or like in my case, again, never in a million years did I think his kids are the same age as my kids. I mean, you just don't know, you know what I mean? You just don't know. And this just shouldn't be, it's just so fucked up.
It really is, because you should be able to even go out in the community knowing you're protected, not having to constantly look over your shoulder. You have your children, and constantly the system has protected, and as a society, and even us speaking out on everything that we do, from the corruption to human trafficking to child sexual abuse and exploitation, we get attacked. And so it blows my mind. And if you sit and listen to what survivors go through, and one thing that really threw me off, and I didn't even know, living in Arizona, I didn't even know until I saw your social media when you had made a post saying, Arizona residents, here's your reminder, it's the third Friday of the month, sex offenders will walk free today. And I was like, wait, what? And so that really opened up my mind, and like it rubbed me a whole different way. And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about the law, but I do know I need to find Kayleigh, and I need to learn about Kayleigh's law. And then
Well,
we went through even advocating for survivors and our number getting leaked out and getting harassed and all that. And when we sat on the phone with police, I'm like, I literally cussed at the police. I was like, no wonder why. I was like, no wonder why survivors and victims don't report anything to the fucking police. Like, what are you good for? You have to wait until somebody's at my door physically harming me and putting literally
family in danger.
my family in danger to do something. He's like, yeah, pretty much. Oh, and by the way, we need you to do all the research. We need you to give us all the screenshots, and we need you to do everything for us. And I'm like, so then where am I protected in this? And so then when I saw your law, and then even connecting with you, and you're like, no, wait, hold on, my law now protects. And I was like, oh, wow. And so it hits home, and it can happen to anyone. In our state being a hub for literally everything, the borders open, and human trafficking, like there's so much that the victims, and even as residents, that we don't know. So it's important to share the awareness and to share Kayleigh's story.
So, and right now too, in our society, there's a sense of urgency to protect these pedophiles.
Yeah.
I mean, literally to protect them. And excuse me, I don't understand. Like, I just, and even in my own case, things that are happening, the amount of people running to back him, to protect him, like churches, seriously. And it's very parallel to my case. When I turned him in, he was my PE teacher and my club soccer coach. I don't even know if I said that at the beginning. I know I said what grade I was in, but yeah, he was my PE teacher and soccer coach. And I always say this when I do podcasts, but it's because it's so like jaw dropping. I turned him in, we did a confrontation call. Do you think that they would have arrested him if there wasn't hard proof? No, they arrested him. And we showed up at the soccer tournament because that's all I wanted to do was play soccer. That's all I wanted. That was my life. And the entire club had shirts on that said, we support our coach.
Wow.
And he was arrested.
That some parent had to have bought for those children.
Well, this was in 2006. So they were like white t-shirts with Sharpies,
Oh,
but
yeah.
but still someone. So imagine, and I look back and it just breaks my heart. Like, that's what I walked up to. Not that anybody knew it was me, although they may as well have said my name on the damn news. They said what schools I went to, which ones I was currently going to, my birthday, like, so, but my parents didn't want to pull me from that. because it was all I wanted and that was what I did. That was what I lived for. And he obviously ruined that for me. But think about that. He's arrested a man for, even if, and I don't want to say if it wasn't true, but if they arrested him, there's some kind of proof. And you have your 13 and 14-year-old girls wearing shirts that say we support our coach. What if that was your fucking daughter?
Exactly that part.
Yeah.
And that's what I want you to put, that's what I want to put in perspective is you were a child and other adults literally have their daughters. So like, what message are you teaching your children? And if it was to happen to you or your child, like put that in perspective, because you even walking up as a kid, knowing what you went through and then seeing that, it's like, whoa, what the heck? Like I'm innocent. You literally are
Right.
innocent.
Oh, you are, but they don't, I seriously, you guys, I look back and what all of it is so bad. They, and I was 14, like 14.
14.
He has been labeled as a charming narcissist.
Of course.
Okay, he's a groomer. What did he do? He groomed the school. He groomed the soccer team. He groomed the girls. Like that's what they do. He targeted me, and it's taken me a long time. I will say this because I want victims to know that it's not abnormal. I minimized what he did to me for so long. And what I mean by that is, well, I wasn't raped, so it could have been worse. No, he fucking took he sexually abused me for 2 years when I was 12 and 13 years old, a 30 and 31-year-old man. And I didn't do anything wrong. I was 12 and 13. And it has taken me a long time to stop minimizing what he did to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of victims go through that. I don't think that's abnormal at all. But when you have and I think too, the stigma of what a sex offender is not what sex offenders are. If you go sit, and what we had talked about before, if you go sit down at court on the third Friday of the month at 1 p.m., I'm telling you, you will be shocked at the good-looking, charming men that are sitting over that are the sex offenders. And then when you hear what they've done, because they don't sugarcoat anything, you're like, that guy did that. Yep. Because that's what we're not teaching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have 4 daughters. Like they're like, white vans are scary. And I'm like, yeah, they are a little bit, but let's talk about the good looking teacher or pastor or whatever. Like you have to be aware of all things, not just the guy in the white van, but yeah, that's what these pedophiles do. They prey on their victim. They prey on the community. They prey on the environments which they're offending in and groom, so that when they go to, or when they get caught, I should say, then they have all these people going to bat for them. And I'm literally still dealing with that. You wouldn't believe it.
And that's something that I want to really reiterate is they don't just groom the child. They're grooming the other parents, the churches, the schools, the communities, because
their own families.
Right. The problem is like so many people are like, well, I know him and he's really good to us. He might be. He might be a fantastic person to you, but don't ever think that somebody is not capable of doing something just because they didn't do it to your family.
Mm-hmm.
And so to sit back and say, well, he would never do that. Okay, he might never do it to you, but the fact that anybody, as we now know, is capable of doing this.
And what also, to go off of that, and I go back to my case because it's my case. Yeah. He admitted on a phone call everything that he did. He admitted to it. Don't tell them I did that to you. Don't say it was me. I'll go to prison. I mean, numerous times. Okay, so there's his voice. We're not even talking about like it was a text message and they could say, oh, well, it was sent from someone. It was him on a phone call admitting to everything that he did to me, played in court. And the team still defended him. Actually, here's Arizona. Here's your fun fact a little bit too for some Arizona residents. At the time, the man who was, I'm just gonna say his name, I can say whatever I want. The man who was the owner of the coach or sorry, of the club soccer team, it was Arizona Storm or Arizona Banat. His name was John Roseanne. He was the president. He, after hearing that phone call, he bailed my abuser out of jail and housed him. So the president and founder of a children's organization bailed a coach who openly admitted to sexually abusing one of his players and bailed him out of jail. Also, when I say people, I showed up at that soccer tournament, there was that happened. And then I went to a club meeting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a club meeting. It was a bombarding and calling me out in front of everybody. They had hired a private investigator and his attorney, and they showed up and they said, we know you did this. We know you're lying. And and my parents didn't let me go back after that. That was, what sealed the deal for me playing soccer. But that's what, as the victim. And do you think one dad followed us out? One dad. That's it. No one else. And like, I'm 14 years old and this is what, like coming at me from every angle that I'm wrong. He didn't do anything wrong to me, but he admitted it and they're all still running to save him. And that's what survivors deal with. It's not just, his own, well, he had a wife and a girlfriend and whatever.
Well, yeah,
but
he's a real winner. So,
but all those people in court are defending him and he admitted to it they're hearing a tape where he admits to it and they're still defending him. So anyways, John Roseanne is the president of Arizona Youth Soccer Association currently today, just so you guys know.
good.
Wow. So call to action. Going off of that though, I want to talk to you about community and life as a survivor, because what I can't fathom is people do not care until it hits home, until it's someone that they know, and until it's at their front door. Then there's more tangible to where they're like, oh wow, like I need to step in and get involved. Other than that, it's like, this has been going on for years, not my problem, human trafficking, the system, blah, blah, blah. We hear it as a society. And what blew my mind with you having a law, you being alone and fighting this alone, what rubbed me the wrong way of being in the state and knowing what you've done personally by yourself. We have so many people on social media that do things for clout and do things in a trend. And now these topics are okay to talk about, but only to a certain level, because then they don't want to push the envelope, or they don't want to lose brand ambassador, or they don't want to be looked down upon from their community, whether it's a church or a soccer club or mom's group, whatever that may be for social media facade and presence. What blows my mind, has anyone from a survivor standpoint, whether it's media, mega churches, organizations like Turning Point, or all those big hubs that we have personally in our state, knowing we're a hub, our borders are opened, and there's so much abuse and mental health problems going on in the world. This should be the spotlight of what is going on in the epidemic of everything. Has anyone, and I know the answer to this, but I want to put it in perspective. Has anyone in these communities, and what does it look like as a survivor, like walk us through the journey of what it truly takes? Because it's not like these people are coming up to you and saying, hey, I have a platform, whether it's at Turning Point, whether it's on mainstream media or a mega church. Let's have you speak and come educate the youth, educate the parents. Has anyone helped or really reached out? What does that connection and community look like? Because everyone's here to save the children and everyone's here for doing what's right and helping survivors. But it's like, are you really? So what does that look like for you in the community and community support?
that looks like everyone's full of shit, blah, 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 but no one wants to actually do anything. And I love to talk. I'll talk all day long, but I'm a doer. Like and I have had so many people come up to me, people, people, I know big people. I'm going to back you. I'm so proud. I'm going to do this. And I literally am like, okay, well, until it happens. Okay. Because you're not. The only platform I've really had is Turning Point. And even then they did not promote it. They had me on for segments, but they didn't promote it. And there is some frustration there for multiple reasons. So, I understand they're a C3 and they can't talk about like legal things in the legislative session, but once it's passed, you can. And they always talk about grassroots efforts and getting involved and making changes. And I'm like, I am literally like the definition of those things and what I have done. And this happened in your state, in your county, this has happened. Why are we not talking more about this? And the reason we're not is because, first of all, people don't care. They just don't. And I hate to say that, but that is honestly, that's the truth. People don't care. They care when it's affecting them.
Unless they are, I'm personally going to say from what I've seen and experienced, they care to make a segment and make a social media post off of it to profit off of survivors and victims. So they care about it because it's bringing them money, but they're not doing shit to help the people who are being victimized every single day. But they want to throw glitz and glam and all these little galas and whatever, but they're not doing shit to help the people who are getting abused and victimized every single day. This is your guys' life, and that's what people don't understand. You live this. This is your life. And you calling out certain people, and people are so quick to want the names, but it's like, you're not even doing shit with sharing my story, but you want the names. But why? So I can put my life and my child's life in danger? No, I'm trying to protect us from that. What are you really doing?
Yeah.
Profiting.
And like I said, Turning Point's the only one that I've really been on to talk about it, but they didn't promote it. Like, for example, I can't talk about certain things on Turning Point because they're a 501c3, but Charlie Kirk has an LLC. I'm open to talk to him.
Right.
Just haven't, because, and now he has a daughter, again, what if it was your daughter? Like, it's, people just don't care and they don't want, and it's uncomfortable. And it is such an and people don't want to believe it's real. Even with proof, they want to turn and run the other way.
Yeah.
It is so hard to, as a good person, wrap your head around somebody doing something so bad. So people do not put their children in that space, their grandchildren, nieces, nephews in that space. Cause it's like, you do realize, and even just for example, Bridget, and I have two boys and Bridget has a daughter, and they're 12, 13, 14. So your ages in which this happened to you could be happening. And again, it's not just girls, could be happening to any of our children. Put yourself, if that scares the shit out of you, it should.
Yep.
That's the point. But if it scares you, you have to do something about it. You got to make sure, I don't know, you're sitting and watching practice and not going shopping while practice is happening. You have to make sure you're speaking out about it. You have to make sure maybe you want to donate, whatever it is.
Yeah. But people don't want to, because then it makes it real. And even when it's real, like for my parents, and you guys, when I say I empathize with my parents, I can't imagine, like, from a parental, now that I'm a parent, I have a daughter the same age. I can't imagine. I look at my daughter and I'm like, oh my God, I just can't. Like,
were your parents, were they very receptive to you, and they believed you and not?
Oh no, they did.
Okay.
So interestingly enough too, I've been thinking a lot about this. People are always like, why do you wait to turn your abuser? Why don't you say anything? And we could talk about that forever, but I lived in such a small bubble. I wasn't safe in that bubble. No one would have believed me. It took me getting out of Buckeye and going to Xavier College Prep and watching a video and me realizing, oh shit, I think maybe something bad happened, but he said he loved me and he cared about me, and this was different, and he shouldn't be doing this, but this is different, I think I need to go talk to somebody and see if it is different, because I think it is. I did not realize I was turning him in when I turned him in,
Wow.
because he had me so mentally fucked up. And that's what that is more of what's happening than being kidnapped and raped.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And so when I went, I didn't realize I was turning him in. And when they called my parents, my abuser was the last person they thought. It wasn't that they didn't believe me, but he would never. And it was, I don't want to put words in their mouth. I don't want to make assumptions. I don't think that, it gives me the chills. I don't think they really accepted that. Again, not that they didn't believe me, but I don't think they really accepted that he did that until they heard the phone call, because they were listening, or they went in and listened after. They didn't let them in. And my mom worked with him, you know, and I want you to think about that too. I couldn't escape him. I saw him every day at school, and he was my soccer coach, and I saw him every day at practice, and it was club. We traveled, like, you know, him and my mom were friends. But so it took me getting out to realize that, and to feel safe enough. And I didn't know that at the time, but looking back, that's what it was. I wasn't, if I would have turned him in before, I don't know what would have happened. I wasn't safe. I was around his people that he groomed.
Yeah.
And then it took me being around strangers to feel heard. And it's horrible. And that's everywhere.
And I'm sure, and as a parent, I'm sure you can empathize with this. I would feel guilty as hell.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he was a good person, and I didn't know.
And the other heartbreaking part with that is, as a society, and what we said, I'm going to stand on when I literally, it's not to bash anyone, but we need to call it how we see it. And Becky, I think, is frozen.
Mhm.
But we need to call it how we see it. And that is the problem. As a society, we've enabled this for so long. We constantly protect the abusers. So I want everyone to put it in perspective of, what if it was your child? What if it was your family member, your niece, your nephew, the little kid next door, or someone in your school that your child has the child's friend? I want everyone listening, if you have a platform, and we're not attacking anyone, and I know if people want to take snippets, whatever, clippets of this whole podcast, please do, because we are open to these conversations, and we are just trying to say survivors and victims need to be heard. We are elevating the wrong people and the wrong influencers. So if you have a platform, use it and do what's right, and say, how can I help? I might not be able to, because I might be a brand ambassador here, or I can only talk about certain things on this segment. And we understand people have families, and you still have to have a job and get income coming in. But at the end of the day, take a step back, look at alignment. If you are a Christian, if you are following God or higher source, whatever that may look like to you, other than satanic, really take a step back and put it in perspective of what Kayleigh is saying, because she even has daughters still to this day where she's fighting her abusers in the system for everybody. So everybody is protected, and she's doing it alone. So if we can all step up and do our part and stand up behind the survivors and victims and say, how can we help elevate your voices and get bills passed and put the pressure on the law enforcement, on the mega churches, on the system, to change it systematically to protect and defend the victims and survivors, and do what's right and what's best for the children. Because again, at the end of the day, she was a child. If we can all step up and do our part, that is where we're going to see the change. The survivors and victims do not want money. They do not care about a little Instagram check mark or that platform. yes, they wish they had that platform so they could get their message spread
Yeah.
across a lot quicker. But oftentimes they're met with adversity, they're met with censorship, they're threatened. There's so many tactics used against them. So everybody that we are saying in general, I'm going to say influencers, mega churches, priests, whoever you may be, musicians, however you want to label that in social media world. If you have a following, TikTok, everybody, hello, digitally, we're talking to you. If you can help us get Kayleigh's law heard, because this needs to be pushed globally, it will only help so many children and so many victims who constantly have to relive this trauma every day, where oftentimes people then turn to drugs, alcohol, homelessness, suicide. That's where you then see them go on a deeper path of falling off or not being heard. And you see them in the lines of human trafficking. You see them now soliciting themselves on OnlyFans. You now see them going into the porn industry, because us as a society need to start holding people accountable. So I just want to throw that out there. Don't come for Kayleigh. Don't come and start saying, oh, well, you guys called this out on your podcast. We will be right behind and right beside Kayleigh. And I have said this over and over, that I don't care who gets mad. It is a child's life at risk, and a survivor deserves to be protected. And men need to stand up and start defending the woman and using our platforms as a society to make this all end. It's really that simple. By just stepping in and not worrying about the status and society and labels and materialistic. So thank you for even sharing that, because oftentimes survivors are met with so much adversity and so many tactics and so much pushback that they don't feel safe.
Well, and I think like too, in some of my case, specifically like with mega churches, you know, and having a problem with them and protecting my abuser, they look at me and they see me right now. So I have now started taking a picture of when I was a 13-year-old child.
Yes.
This was me. This was the 13-year-old that was being sexually abused. Don't look at me, look at her.
Right.
Because they're forgetting.
Yep.
And with this law specifically, I am one person, and I've done a lot as one person. However, victims and survivors don't know they have this protection unless they know they have this protection. And so getting the word out is so critical, so that they can petition the court and ensure they have this protection. If they don't petition the court, then this is not automatic. They have to understand that. And they also have to understand there's a damn good chance that their perpetrator and their abuser has gotten off their probation and they don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the word out about this law, and I am trying, I can't even tell you all the ways I'm trying to get the word out. And there's things coming up because it hasn't gone into effect yet. But something else I like to tell people, just in general, and we'll say here specifically in Arizona and Wisconsin, because the law has passed for this part. Go tell 3 people you know about the law, or we'll say 4. We'll go tell 4. Chances are 1 in 4, even if you don't know and they never said anything, 1 in 4 of them is a victim of sexual abuse themselves. And if not, someone close to them is. So, and just by getting the word out about that is huge. The other thing is, if you're in another state that is not Arizona or Wisconsin, I need your help, because I can't get this law passed in other states without the sponsorship of a legislator who is willing to sponsor the bill in their state. But I need a legislator who wants to see this passed and who understands the importance of this law. This should be a law in every state across America. This shouldn't even be a question. But for some reason, primaries is probably the reason, but because everyone's so worried about getting elected. But after November, I would like to hope that my phone will be blowing up from legislators in other states who want to sponsor this bill to protect victims in their state. I can't do that without them. I will show up, I'll testify, I'll be there for everything, but I need a legislator in each state to sponsor the bill. My hands are tied until then.
So if you can share for anyone who is listening and they want to help you and get involved in your mission and get your bill heard in other states, how do they go about contacting you and even begin that process if they might know someone, and everyone has connections as well. But if you can share that as well as share your website because you still matter and the meaning behind that message as well.
So we'll go hand in hand with that. So my website and my mission, my website is becauseyoustillmatter.com. And that kind of came to because as I was going through this process, I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? Because you still matter, Kayleigh. That's why. Like, yeah, it's been 15 years and your case closed and justice was served, but why are you doing this? Because you still matter. Like, that's what I kept telling myself. You still matter. You still matter. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, all victims still matter. So I am fighting for you because you still matter. That is why I'm doing this. And don't forget that you still matter. So my website is becauseyoustillmatter.com. I just launched a new one, so it's in the works and there's stuff coming up every few days. So it'll be more convenient, like a call to action and an actual plan. We're working on that every day. But if you're in another state and if you get on becauseyoustillmatter.com, the bills, the law is going to vary in each state a little differently. And that's just because of the way state laws are written. However, the overall concept is pretty adaptable in every state. It should be very easy. And all the language it's there. So if you have a local legislator who's willing to listen to this, and most of the time, legislators don't want to listen to you if you're not local. I have family in Wisconsin and people who were able to connect me. And so I'm grateful for that, but that's because it's their constituent. So I had reached out to like Texas GOP and they were like, well, you're not our constituent. So, okay, I'm still trying to do something good. Like, can you help connect me? But if you're an actual constituent in a state, they're more likely to listen to you. So you can just send them. And remember, as I'm saying this, your legislators work for you. It is their job to listen to you, their constituent. For some reason, society is so intimidated by having a conversation with a legislator. Like, no, go show up down, find one who is passionate about what you're passionate, who has the same beliefs, and go down to their office. And if they're not going to answer their phone and schedule to meet with you and demand it, that's their job. They work for us, the people. Don't forget that. So many people do.
And they have. Our legislators have forgotten that they work for us too.
That's why I have a job is for you. What? Yes, they have forgotten that. There are some good ones though. Like I don't want to forget because there are some really good ones, but you can email them. On my website, there's very basic information. You can also, to help them, there's Arizona law and Wisconsin law and literally broken down with the exact language. Let me tell you something, the hard work has been done. What do you think Wisconsin did? They literally mimicked Arizona and just put it into the way that they had to. The really shitty part about Wisconsin, and I fought you guys so hard, is theirs is not retroactive. And that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I still want to change it.
Yeah,
but one session at a time. Yes. But they still took the overall concept and the language and they implemented it. And while I'm in Wisconsin with the legislators and their attorneys, I'm on the phone with Arizona attorneys going over language because it's critical that you have the right language when you pass laws. Mm-hmm. And so I have a team that's willing at any time to talk to legislators and leg counsel in other states to get this implemented in your state where it works with the way the laws are currently written. But I need other people's help in their states because they're the constituents there and I am not.
And for those listening in our state, specifically Arizona, how can we help boots on the ground or even online? We constantly say the power of one. So again, those of you who are listening who say, how can I help today? Go to, and I'll have Kayleigh share it in a moment. Go to her social media. Literally hit the share button. It's free. It takes nothing but a split second.
You're already on it anyway. Yeah,
you're already on it, scrolling through the gram, TikTok, whatever you're doing. So if you can just share that one post one time your following and everyone else who just shares one time will help the reach get so, it'll help the traction and it'll help it get so much more eyes on it, especially in the world of censorship, where she is shadow banned for speaking out on things like this. She is censored for using her voice. So if they're in Arizona, boots on the ground, and they want to help you and get involved, how can they do so?
Well, this is one way, but it makes me emotional to think about this. If you have someone go in and share just on their story, right, about like what is Kayleigh's law? I have all kinds of informative things on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone sees that you're close to and you didn't even know. If they didn't know, they know now. And you may have just saved their life. Think about that. Think about how one person sharing that information, how someone that I might even know that person. It just keeps going, right? It's a snowball effect. But that sharing that and what this law is could seriously save their life and give them, they have to petition. I can't do that part. I've done a lot, but I can't petition for every victim's protection. And it's hard. And I know it's going to be painful and it's going to really suck. And it fucking sucks. But you have to go in and petition the court to have this protection. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to go back and face your abuser. You're just petitioning and they'll serve your abuser. But even opening that wound, it's a lot. But by sharing that, specifically in Arizona, if you're an Arizona resident, you don't know who's going to benefit from knowing and who doesn't have the information yet. Other ways to get involved are, right now, again, we're not in legislative session, and that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting legislation. I am creating laws and changing laws. Sex offenders who are level 1 are not on the public registry. Just so everybody's aware, in Arizona, your next door neighbor may be a level 1 sex offender, but they're not going to be on the public registry. And they may have raped a 12-year-old, but because they're level 1, they're not going to be on the registry. I'm going to get that changed. And so that part of it too, having the support, I literally was down at the legislature by myself, testifying. Actually, I take that back. I had a friend come with me once, and a man who works in a victims advocacy place show up and also testify. And that's it. And then I had 50 sex offender moms fighting me. And they're ruthless. Do you think they care about me? No, they care about their innocent sons. So, but understand that by showing up is half the battle. So when you go down to the legislator and you're fighting these bills, you have a right to testify. There's ways you do that. In Arizona, you do have to get on and fill out, it's called an RTS, a request to speak. And when the bill goes on the floor, you have to submit to be able to speak. But then you go down and you get to testify. Usually you only get 90 seconds and they're pretty like done at 90 seconds. They don't care. But 90 seconds, it is and isn't a lot of time. But if you get enough people down there who each get 90 seconds, what kind of message can you get through in an hour? A lot. And a lot of these legislators don't know. It's sad, but they don't understand and they don't know. And then when you have the opposite side and they're giving false information, conflicting information, then they really don't know. So, but it's one of those things where there's more people showing up for the bad guys than the good guys. And it's really hard. So getting that backing is huge. I am not like other organizations are great. I could think of so many that do incredible things for victims and survivors. That's not what I do. I am on the ground at the Capitol, writing bills, emailing, showing up and speaking, waiting to talk to them after. I am literally the action. Like, I mean, my actions speak louder than my words all day long because I'm down there constantly and I'm doing the things that I have to do to make the changes that need to be made. But having people to support that and get behind that mission and actively making changes, it could be really beneficial, not for me, but for survivors. And we need more people to back survivors.
Yeah, and this is really the call. We say this all the time. For people who don't know what they're going to do, Bridget and I, we're here, we're educating people. We speak out about it. We do that. Some people are kicking in the doors and rescuing kids and doing all that stuff. If you are a like-minded person who understands legislation, who understands and wants to be part of this, join Kayleigh, because again, like she said, 90 seconds is a short amount of time, but if you have 15 people at 90 seconds, that's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 30 minutes, or however the math goes. Excuse me if I didn't do it right, but you get what I'm saying. So 30 minutes, whatever. But again, if we can have as equally as many people there as are speaking out against their innocent children, maybe it becomes a thing. If right now it's looking like Kayleigh and the two other people are crazy, and that's not at all what we want to have, the impacts that we have. So if you have a voice, if this is your thing and you've been waiting for God to call you to do something, I really want to speak up about trafficking, I don't know what to do. Here it is. And this isn't going to be everyone's passion, but this may be your thing. And if it is, please reach out to Kayleigh, even if you're in a different state. Let's get together.
Yeah. And it's, I think everyone plays such an important role, right? Like the puzzle isn't complete without all the pieces. And so I could talk all day long. I love writing, like all the things, but I have found my niche, and that's showing up and being in person. But there's other, some people are good with, like donating, like that's what they're like, oh, I have money, so I'm going to donate. And that is helpful. Like we do need all the pieces to complete the puzzle. But understand too, even if you just show up to be present, what an impact that has. Like, I'm here, I'm supporting you, because survivors don't have that. It's sad. Like, I'll never forget, I was walking out of the Capitol once. I had to be escorted out, like in a good way, for my protection. And I'm walking out and there's like, seriously, you guys, there's probably 30 like sex offender moms or whatever group. And I'm just by myself. And I just thought, like, God, like, this sucks, because it does, but it doesn't matter, because I'm doing it. Like, whether I have 100 people behind me, 1,000 people, or I'm by myself, like, I'm going to keep fighting for this. And it's really hard. And I know public speaking is not for everybody. It doesn't faze me. Like, some people put me in front of 1 million people, I'm fine. Like, on the spot, you guys saw me, not that there was 1 million people there, when I got put on the spot, that Thursday night, and that doesn't faze me. But I understand that's not for everybody, but there's other ways to get involved. And so showing up, my point is showing up, like, and doing what I'm doing is important, but also bringing awareness is just as important. Telling someone is just as important. All of it is so important, and it's so intertwined, and we need everybody to push this mission forward.
Amen.
Absolutely. And even if it's taking the time to not only share the message, but to let a survivor know, whether it's a comment or in their DMs, know that it might take them a little bit to respond. Even like on our podcast, it takes a little bit to respond. But even just letting survivors know, I'm here for you, I'm praying for you, I see you, I'm proud of you, you are courageous, you're a warrior. Like, any little message that is close to your heart when you see the survivor stories, please send them a message, because that is what keeps them going. And to know that they're not alone, because they very much are so boots on the ground every day of their life, fighting this alone, sadly.
And they're not alone. And I feel alone a lot of the time. And like I said, a lot of that's because what I went through, but I'm not the only one who's gone through that. I'm not the only one who's gone through the abuse. I'm not the only one who's gone through, no one talks about the aftermath. No one. A victim's story does not end when their case closes. People do not understand that. That is just the end of that chapter. And we are left picking up the pieces of what was done to us. We have to learn how to live with what was done to us. For children, not that I'm not minimizing any victim, but for children, and you're growing in your innocence, you have to learn how to live your life with what was done to you by an adult. And something else too, I thought about this the other day and it made me feel so empowered. I was a child. I was so young and so innocent. And he was a 30-year-old man. But I grew up. And these pedophiles don't realize that one day the innocent children that they violate grow up. And we do. And we're pretty fucking powerful.
Amen. And I want to also share that life after, and what many people forget, is you're a mom, you're a wife, and the healing you've done and all you've overcome. But now you're a mom, and now looking at your child and even those feelings and those emotions and what that looks like, and now parenting from a different perspective. And whatever you're comfortable with sharing, what does that life look like, especially because you are a mom of 5 and you are a wife, and as well as like the emotions and trauma of healing aspect as well.
It's terrifying. I mean, and then like knowing I'm putting myself out there with what I'm doing, like I'm actually like putting a target on my back, but I'm trusting that God has led me to it. So he'll get me through it and he'll keep me safe. And believe me, I've gotten threats. My children have gotten threats, and it sucks. And I want to protect them, and I'm going to protect them. But I have to keep fighting for this. And so having those deep conversations with my children, and it's interesting because I'm telling you guys literally like what happened in my case, and what's currently happening is now rolling into my children's lives. It's directly affecting them because my abuser has kids my age, or my kids' age. And Phoenix is not that big, is all I'm going to say. And so, having those conversations with my kids about what I'm doing and being open, and my older kids obviously know more details than my younger kids. My younger kids just know that I have a law that protects people. But when this all resurfaced in 2020, I was still kind of numb, but then it all resurfaced. And I'm looking at this now from a different lens. I'm looking at it at the lens from an adult, from a mother, from a wife. And that's why I said I really empathize with my parents. I can't imagine what they went through from any of it. And I pray to God I don't ever have to be on that end. But I am still trying. My brain is so powerful. I've learned with how I learned how to deal with it during the abuse. And I'm okay. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that stuff doesn't resurface. It doesn't mean sometimes I see things that trigger me, because they do. And that's another thing, that there's things I can't take away, like what kind of car he drove. I mean, I'm past that, but still people forget, like there are things that happen that victims see that trigger them, but there's nothing, a song comes on. What if that song was playing in the midst of their abuse? They can't, and they're at a restaurant, they can't just turn it off. These are the things that victims live with. And it's how you learn how to cope with it and deal and heal. And you do have to learn how to feel through the healing, heal through the feeling, but it goes both ways, but it's hard and getting there. And so, and now I have my case that I went through, but now I have all the stuff that's happening with my current case, because there's things still happening. And to touch on that, to give an idea, and a lot of people don't know this stuff, my abuser was going to the same church I was going to. Who do you think the church ran to defend? I'm serious. His kids and my kids go to sister schools. Who do you think they're defending? Yeah. And I'm still dealing with this. And he's been convicted, and he's a registered sex offender, and he's on probation. And they are still, this is what we deal with. And so I'm trying to heal through my past trauma. Now I'm trying to work through the current trauma. And it's so parallel with everybody, like this sense of urgency to run to these pedophiles and protect them. And then here you have innocent me and my family, and we're still suffering, and no one cares. And that's truly how it feels. And that's why I said, no one cares. And I know that. So
Well,
it's just part of it.
well, do know, and I forever am grateful, we're forever grateful to have found you and that we care and we will be by your side. And as I've told you multiple times, I don't care who gets mad, and every connection I have, I'm going to personally give it to you and be alongside with you in this fight, because enough is enough. And it's time that people start not only putting their money where their mouth is, but standing up for what's right and knowing, like, I have a daughter the age of when you were abused, and this could happen to her. I have nieces, I have nephews. We have so many people in our community, and we see the world and what even technology and how quick these predators can get into the children's phones by just having that conversation. And the child doesn't realize they're innocent. They don't realize that it could be a grown man behind the screen. So as parents and as a community and society, it's important we start having these uncomfortable conversations. Yes, we understand it's scary. Yes, we understand that it's uncomfortable, but we don't want you to be in fear. We want to be able to have these conversations so we can further educate not only ourselves as parents, but we can work together as a community, as a society, to change it systematically, as well as grow together to save future generations and fix it, because it can be changed.
And they're in your homes without even being in your homes. But I know I know I said no one cares. What I should have said is it feels like no one cares. And the reason I say that is because, and I know you guys cared, I love you. I mean that. The reason I think victims feel like people don't care is because talk. That's all anybody does. But then no one wants to actually be there to do and help. And not just with what I'm doing. I'm saying when they turn their abuser in, here, like you have, like we'll say, at a school or whatever, them saying, if you've been hurt or something, and you're like, oh gosh, maybe that was me. And then you go tell them and they disregard you, or you go to the police. And so that's why I feel like victims feel like people don't care, because everyone says they do, but then it's like, then you go to them and they leave you hanging out to dry. And we deal with that a lot.
That's the wild part. That happened at Bridget's daughter's school. Is a bunch of kids were like, this teacher is making us really uncomfortable, and here's why. And they even like got to a point where they signed a petition. So it wasn't
As children,
children, like they organized themselves to do so, and they're like, we don't have enough proof, we can't do anything. And he screwed up and eventually got caught. But it's this idea, and I also believe society has created this mentality that anybody who's calling someone out is lying.
Yeah.
And so it's this thing like, we have Me Too, but we also don't believe Me Too.
Yeah. And even when I was down at the legislator, they were like, well, what about cases that have been wrongly prosecuted? Okay, well, first of all, it's hard to get an actual case with proof prosecuted. You're talking about so minimal, but like everything else, you're focused on the really itty bitty teeny tiny percentage of things that's happening, not the most common things that are happening.
Majority.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why victims feel like they can't, like no one cares, no one's listening, no one, because I mean, in the grand scheme of things, more people don't than do. And I do know that you guys care. I absolutely know that. And I am so grateful for you and everything that you do and your platform and your time that you're giving to survivors to be heard and get their messages out there. That is huge. And that is so needed right now. And I'm so grateful for you guys for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And again, it takes all of us. So without everyone's support, listening and tuning into these podcasts, sharing the messages, we wouldn't be able to do it without all of you. So again, thank you for everyone as well for all that you do and helping us elevate these stories. And if you can, Kayleigh, if you had a message to send to survivors or victims listening who feel that they are alone or that there isn't light at the end of the tunnel, what would that message be?
The obvious thing is to say that you're not alone, because you're not. You're not alone. I know you feel alone. I feel alone, but you're not. There are more of us than we know.
Sadly.
And it is very sad. And I am pretty sure there's more people directly in your life that are on the same path that have been down the same path as you, that you don't even know about. And you may never know about, because again, we all have different healing journeys, but you're not alone. And I believe that change is coming in an overall way, and that I am fighting for you because you still matter. That is why I'm doing this. You still matter. I have not forgotten about you. I don't care how long it's been since your abuse happened. I don't care where you're at in your journey. I am fighting for you, and I will continue fighting for you. And I will not stop until this law is passed in all 50 states, because you still matter.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, and if you go over, it's okay. But if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Victims matter more than perpetrators. Victims did not do anything wrong. The perpetrator did. Stop putting the blame on victims and start holding these pedophiles accountable for their actions. Victims matter during the abuse. They matter after the abuse. They matter 20 years down the road. They are living with something that was done to them, and it never goes away. There are consequences for actions, and these perpetrators don't just get to decide that they've changed and live a normal life. They violated a human, and that human matters. They're not just a number. They are an individual human being, and their lives have been forever altered because of something that was done to them. And that we need to continue fighting for victims and survivors, because you still matter.
Love it. And if you can share where everyone listening can follow or find you on social media, we will link it in our show notes. But for everyone listening, where can they find you on all your platforms as well as your website? My website is
becauseyoustillmatter.com. And honestly, you guys, I only really do Instagram. I'm so busy with 5 kids. But so I'm on Instagram mostly is where I do most of my stuff. So the Kayleigh Kozak. I am on Twitter and maybe Facebook. I don't even know if I'm on Facebook. I try to keep up, but honestly, Instagram is like my main thing. But you're a mom and you're present, you're with your kids, you're fighting the system, like never apologize for that. You're literally in there doing it all. So again, thank you for all that you do, and constantly boots on the ground, being a voice for the voiceless, and making sure others know that they still matter and they're not alone. And if you could share any, or actually the platform is yours, whatever else you'd like to share before we head into wrap up, go for it. Let's see. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you. Seriously, I mean that. I'm so glad that we finally met. And I memean, especially because we're trying to connect on social media, and it's crazy how all that happened. But I want to remind people to get involved, whatever that looks like, wherever you feel called to get involved. There are so many different ways that you can get involved, and they are all just equally important as the other. I want to remind everybody to, and it's because I do this part of it, but pay attention to like your local politics, because those people really play a big role in things in your state. And so do your homework and look at where these people stand on these issues. We need more people in office that are going to protect victims, not the bad guys. We need more accountability. We need harsher punishments. And I mean, harsher like accountability. I mean, there is none. There's just whatever. So, but that starts at the local level. So do your research and your homework, ask questions, email these people, remember that they work for you. Don't forget that. And just, again, I'll say it 100 times, know that I'm fighting for you because you still matter.
Thank you so much. And again, we're honored to have you. Look forward to more conversations in the future. And again, we will make sure to link all of her social media handles in the show notes, as well as different ways of getting involved and connecting with Kayleigh as well. So thank you so much for everyone listening and tuning in. And change begins with awareness. When does it stop? When each and every single one of us have the courage to stop looking away and turning a blind eye. We have no future if we don't protect our children. We have a duty to protect the innocent. If we don't, that blood is on our hands. Everyone has a story. Together, we must rise for the children and for the survivors. It starts with one person. It starts with you. Stand tall, speak your truth. The world will adjust. They cannot take your voice. We want to hold space and take a moment of silence for those dealing with mental health, adversity in their life, those who are just waking up to the corruption and everything going on in the world. Those of you who were abused sexually, mentally, domestically, and those who had their innocence stolen by the corrupt systems, CPS, foster care, in your own family, trusted adult, or a trusted adult figure, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a loved one, whoever it may be. You are strong. You are beautiful. You are enough. We're sorry for everything you endured. If we can, take a brief moment of silence. Don't wait until it's at your front door. Don't wait until it's your son, daughter, niece, nephew, family, or friend. Don't wait until suicide has been committed and now you say you wish you would have listened. It's never too late to do what's right. Survivors, you are not alone. We hear you, we see you, we stand by you. Please remember, survivors, you have a right to be heard. In Kayleigh's words, we are fighting for you because you still matter. Join the fight to save our children and future generations. Stand up and protect the children, as well as we will be the generation to end human trafficking. Love, Kayleigh, and Save Our Children podcast.
I loved all that.